Joining us in studio tonight, Dr. Neal A Lester. He's a professor at ASU of English and the founding director of the Project Humanities at ASU. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for inviting me.
I was going to ask you a very naive question. Do we have a race problem in America? But obviously we do. The question is, how big of a race problem do we have?
Well, relative to what is the next part of that? Because America has always had a problem with race. And I think now we see parallels for some with the 60s, but I would suggest that we look before the 60s to see what gave us the civil rights movement, to see if those same things are percolating now that give us Black Lives Matter.
Is it Pollyanna to think that we should have come further by now?
Well, we have come a long way, though. So we don't want to throw the baby out with the dishwater. We have come a long way, but we don't pat ourselves on the back to say that we don't have work to do.
No one would say that some of these police shootings that we've seen in Baton Rouge and St. Paul aren't atrocious, but at the same time, they have become a call to arms in the black community, rightly so, when we see these Black Lives Matter protests. But is this a blue on black problem, or is it a white on black problem? Well,
I think it's an American problem. And the issues that have led to that have been historically based on race relations. So, you know, I think that this is not an anti-police and it's not an anti-black. We just saw in some of your reporting here that there are people who do value and respect police and authority. There are police who respect black people. But there are also those instances that we have seen now because of social media where that does not seem to be the case. And that's what needs to be teased out. It's the patterns of those things that don't play out in this. How much progress have we made?
Last Friday night when we had the protest, we had Pastor Warren Stewart Jr. down here saying that Jarrett Maupin, who led one of the protests again tonight, does not speak for the black community or for the Black Lives Matter movement. That he's doing it more for his own brand. That certainly can't help the situation when the black community in Phoenix, at least, seems to be fractured about who their leader is.
Well, I would ask that we complicate this. There is no such thing as the leader of the black community because there is no single black community.
He intimates that he speaks for the black community.
Well, I
can't
speak on what he speaks on. What I can say is that there are multiple perspectives, and what I appreciate is that people are looking for multiple perspectives. He's certainly one voice out there, and he's certainly giving those who find that as a strategy appropriate for addressing that. But I would suggest that we look at multiple voices. I would suggest that we look at some female voices, so much so, even now we have males who are somehow offering perspectives in much the way we saw the civil rights movement. So I would suggest that we have multiple perspectives rather than a community.
I wish we had longer, but I just want to ask you in wrapping up, how do we move forward in solving this rift?
Right. Well, let's identify what the rift is first. And so in order to move forward, we may need to move back rather than imagining that, oh, we have a problem, let's move forward. If anybody's going to a therapist, there's a reality that in order to understand what a problem is, we need to go back to see what led to the problem. So until we identify the problem, and there's clearly a problem if we say Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, all lives matter, we don't understand what Black Lives Matter means. So we've got to go back in order to understand where we are now and then move forward, not assume that we figured it out and now we can move forward.
Are we going to get there?
Of course we are. Everybody is not in the streets killing each other. There are people who are quite decent. There are people who are kind and compassionate and forgiving and empathetic. So let's not forget that. And people who are self-reflecting. There are people who demonstrate what we at Arizona State Humanities, Project Humanities call Humanity 101. There's still people who are out there trying to get along.
You give us reason to hope, Doctor.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.